I want to remind you as well that if you sign up to Rebel News Plus, you'll get a bonus segment exclusive to subscribers every week. There won't be any ads on it like this one, so sign up for $8 a month. You guys know me, I'm a big crypto guy, but I'm actually not that great at it. So I've teamed up with Bitcoin 2022, the largest Bitcoin event in the world, April 6th to 9th in Miami Beach, Florida. All the freedom you could ever need. Now, day one is industry day for enterprising Bitcoiners like myself. I need the help really badly. Days 2 and 3 are conference days, including speakers like El Salvador President Nayib Bukele. He's got a big surprise he's promised for everybody, as well as CEOs like Michael Saylor, Elizabeth Stark, Jack Mallers, Adam Back, and hundreds more that you don't want to miss. Now, the last day is the world's first and largest Bitcoin music festival, Sound Money Fest. You don't want to miss it. Last year's conference sold out, so grab your tickets online. b.tc/conference is where you go. You can pay in Bitcoin and save, or use promo code REBELNEWS. That's promo code REBELNEWS for 10% off, and I will see you in Miami.
Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Welcome back to another episode of Andrew Says. This week we have Melissa Tate for the second time. Always fun to have guests back. Melissa, how are you doing? Where are you? What are you up to these days?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
I'm in. So what's that?
Of course. We love to have you here.
I'm always happy to be here. Thank you.
And you're still in Missouri, is it?
No, I'm actually in sunny Florida now.
Oh, you're so lucky. I'm so jealous.
Yes.
Let's start off with Florida then. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because the Florida bill, which is, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, I've read a decent amount about it. It's to stop sex education, particularly about, transgenderism and gender ideology and gender fluidity and all that wonderful stuff for kindergarten to grade 3. So that, I think, is 5-year-old to 8-year-old, that sort of range. But the media is presenting it, they have this phrase, the "don't say gay" bill. Have you seen a lot of that coverage?
Yes, I have. And I actually think that the bill doesn't go far enough because it really only stops at the 3rd grade, which I think it should actually go all the way up to high school, because this is something that I don't feel that schools should be teaching in schools. This is something that a parent should be speaking to their children about. It is not something that is supposed to be taught and indoctrinated into a child's life. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But yes, obviously the left will characterize this as don't say gay, because they know how to frame things. And that's what we on the right need to learn, is how to frame things. And that's how the left operates. When they have an issue that they're tackling, they create a frame around it, and they have framed this issue as "don't say gay." So the minute people hear about it, they obviously think that this is something that is wrong. And then when you look further into it, you find out that this is something that protects children from 5 to 8 years old from being indoctrinated into sexual orientation and transgenderism, all things that have nothing to do with children. You know what a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman do in their bedrooms has nothing to do with children. And the whole idea that you want to start introducing these ideas of male and female are not solid biological facts to children, you're now imposing an ideology, because this is something that children wouldn't even think about unless you actually introduce it to them. So we all know that this is an indoctrination agenda by the left. They're starting to introduce this at a very, very young age, because I believe that they don't want, they want to start at a young age so that people are, by the time they grow up, they're not even going to know look at the world the way we've looked at it in all these years. I mean, we know that a man and a woman is a biological fact. But when these kids grow up, they're not even going to have that concept. That's going to be a foreign concept to these children. And it's devastating to see what's happening. And the fact that the media and the left is out there screaming about this is absolutely ridiculous. And it shows truly who these people are. And I don't think they should be anywhere near children.
I was talking about this very issue with my friends the other day, and you're saying about what they said, which was probably not up till high school age. A couple of them said grade 7 or 8. That's splitting hairs, I think. But I'm not sure, thinking back, and I'm thinking back to when I was in high school, and I think we had sex ed in grades 7 and 8, and then high school. I'm not sure of what I actually learned in any of those classes. Excuse me. So I'm not sure if I haven't decided one way or the other, but I'm not sure if it's necessary at all. Because once a child's in high school, how much of it do they really not know? Maybe it's worth a week of classes, 2 weeks of classes, practicing safe sex. I don't know. A lot of it makes me kind of uncomfortable, but I don't know how much a public school or a Catholic school or anything like that needs to teach children about sex. It kind of weirds me out to think about the fact of some other adult teaching my child about sex.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Have you thought about whether it's needed at all?
I don't think it's needed at all, because we didn't learn about, when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, that was something that a discussion you had with your parents. I don't think this is something that should be outsourced to the government to talk about sex. Every child should be able to have this discussion with their parents instead of having it at school. Because when you're looking at it, why is the government telling your children about what they should be thinking about sex? In my opinion, when I look at my children, I want to be the first person to tell them about anything, because the first person that tells them about any subject is going to have more power and more influence on that child. So really what they're doing is they're trying to preempt that phase of when a parent gets to a point of that discussion with their children. Because when I think of my children, they're still very young, they're 10 and under. I haven't even had that conversation with them because that stuff is not even on their radar. But if they're starting to have these conversations at schools, that means that these people have now undercut me as a parent, because I know when my children are ready to have that conversation based on their maturity level, based on their age. So it is something that a parent should be able to have that discussion with. A school is not a place to, teach math, teach English, teach science, all those things. We don't need to be having teachers indoctrinating children about their sexual views, about their views on sexuality. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's really sad to see that this is what has come of the public school system. I don't know if it's the same there in Canada, but it is scary to watch as a parent.
I'm not sure when ours starts. I think they do have something starting in kindergarten, which of course I would disagree with. I wanted to ask you if you saw, there's all these boycotts now that people want to have on Florida. The NCAA and ESPN. ESPN had like a walkout and a moment of silence during one of their women's college basketball games. And I was watching this, and it was like the ladies that were the announcers, they clearly hadn't read the bill. They just said, we're standing with our fellow LGBT people at Disney, and they're reading off something.
Courtney Lyle, Carolyn Peck. Now, normally at this time, we would take a look back at the first half, but there are things bigger than basketball that need to be addressed at this time. Our friends, our family, our coworkers, the players and coaches in our community are hurting right now. And at 3 o'clock, about 8 minutes ago, our LGBTQIA plus teammates at Disney asked for our solidarity and support, including our company's support, in opposition to the parental rights in education bill in the state of Florida and similar legislation across the United States.
And a threat to any human rights is a threat to all human rights. And at this time, Courtney and I, we're going to take a pause from our broadcast to show our love and support for our friends, our families, and our colleagues.
I wonder, how many people do you think actually have gone and read this? They, like you said, they hear "don't say gay" and they just immediately think that it's a bad thing because of how it's been framed. It reminded me of LeBron James promoting boycotts in Atlanta. And the MLB All-Star game, I think, was taken out of Atlanta when they were talking about voter suppression, when it was actually voter ID and changing the times that polls were open. So they label something as sounding terrible, which they always do. And I wonder, is there a responsibility for these adult women? I would assume they were at least in their 40s, these women, but they don't really have anything about the actual bill on their mind. They just see this and they're pushing it forward. Is there a responsibility for these people to actually, inform themselves on these things? And it sounds crazy to even suggest that you wouldn't be able to. But how much of a responsibility do you think lies on these people? They're calling for boycotts, they're staging walkouts, and they seemingly don't even know what's in it at all. They called it an attack on parental rights, which I thought was the opposite of what the actual bill is. Do you see a lot of that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They have a responsibility to learn what is in the bill, but the left are masters of deception. So the way it is being framed in the media is, and they know that people are not going to take the time to go study and actually see what it is about. Most people have outsourced their way of seeing the world through, maybe an hour worth of news. And I've seen this with my father-in-law, who was living with us for a little bit, and he just loves watching the 6 o'clock news. He's got no concept of what's going on in the world except for what he watches on that 60 minutes worth of news that he turns on and then he turns off. So he's basically outsourced his way of thinking and seeing the world and what's going on in the world just based on that 1 hour of mainstream media news. And then he's off to, watching whatever sports and whatever. He doesn't really care about politics the way you and I do. So he's not going to go out there and start trying to research what the Don't Say Gay bill is and what it's really saying, the Don't Say Gay bill. So this is your average American, and they're just getting this information and the way it's portrayed. And I actually had to sift through and watch the 6 o'clock news with him because I would be cooking dinner and I had to listen to it.
What network was that on?
It was so painful. It was so painful because the lies, the misrepresentation, the half-truths, it's unbelievable the level of indoctrination that is taking place, or propaganda that is being put to the American people. And when they actually spoke about this issue, they had a teenage boy who was about 17 years old telling his story. This is a teenage or transgender person, a trans woman who is a biological male, talking about this bill and how horrible it is and how he's not going to be able to express himself. So right there, you see that it is a deception, because instead of putting a 5-year-old, they put a 17-year-old. So they're misrepresenting what this bill is about. So even I didn't know, and I'm somebody who follows politics. When I first started hearing the Don't Say Gay bill, and I was just thinking, and I actually thought that's what it was called. And I was thinking, well, why are Republicans doing this? This is like shooting yourselves in the foot. And then when I started actually reading up on it and I found out what it's about, I was like, wow, this is totally what it is not being presented out there to be. But I'm just unique in that, I'm a political junkie, and I'm sure many of your audience follow politics and they're into it. But the average person is not going out there to actually see what this is about. So like you're saying, the women that you're talking about, they're just on this bandwagon. They've just been hearing it on every platform. And because the left controls so many spheres of influence, they're able to put it out everywhere, whether it is in media, in entertainment, in education, everywhere. It is everywhere within a flash. And people don't even take the time to go out there and actually look what it is about. They just take in the information that is being spread through all these spheres of influence on social media, on media, entertainment, education, everything, and they just run with it. And then by the time the truth tries to catch up, it's already gone so far, like you're saying. So it's a tragedy, but we just have to continue to speak the truth and continue to put the truth out there. And I've seen a lot of people now you're starting to see people are starting to push back and say, no, this is about kindergarten through third grade, even though I feel like it doesn't go far enough.
Well, with this Lia Thomas stuff and the swimming there, by the way, the score of that NCAA basketball game was 44-4. So maybe they needed to just they needed to spice it up with some boycotts. But Lia Thomas losing the NCAA finals, 5th place and last place. And I'd like to point out the only person that he lost to before that was another transgender person, which was female to male. Let me know how that worked out. One of the teammates said that they staged that, they rigged that. But now he loses two races in the finals that people thought he was going to win. And people are really up in arms in the last tournament where he won by like 5 seconds. And to your point where you think people are starting to really notice now, this I think was the biggest reaction I've seen from people on something regarding this, because it's young girls. They've been swimming their whole lives, waking up at 5 a.m. probably, because swimmers are crazy like that. And there's this one girl named Rika Georgie. I have that written down. She says it's unfair. She came in 17th in the regional tournament or whatever it was before the finals, and therefore she didn't make it to the national finals because the top 16 are the ones that go. And now you're seeing people actually stand up and speak out against this thing. So it seems like there's going to be maybe some pushback. Maybe this is where it all starts to stop, because once one girl speaks out, I think more people are going to speak out. And I wanted to transition that into talking about the book you were talking about the last time you were on here. You were telling me you have an audio book coming. Do you want to tell people about that? And it was, I forget the title. You tell me.
Choice Privilege.
Choice Privilege, yeah. You want to tell people about how that's being released now?
Sorry, what's that?
You want to tell people how that's being released now? You said it was on an audiobook now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Choice Privilege is the book that I wrote, which basically pushes back on the idea of critical race theory and white privilege, and actually exposes it for what it is, which is cultural Marxism. And as somebody who grew up in Zimbabwe, came to the United States as a 19-year-old with nothing but a suitcase, $300 in my pocket, paid my way through college, hard work, determination, started a business, became successful. I know that America is a great place for anybody, no matter what color you are. But I expose the fact that, this whole idea of critical race theory and white privilege is actually a ploy to racially divide and conquer America. And it is actually something that happened in my own country, in Zimbabwe, because we also have a white population. And overnight, we found that this idea that the white people are the reason for all our problems was put out there as the narrative. And it actually resulted in a devastating economic collapse after they started to redistribute wealth from the white people to the Black indigenous people. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. And I see it happening here in the United States, and it's been really frightening. And I'm starting to see the fruits of it. So I actually wrote the book, Choice Privilege. It's been very successful. It was a bestseller on Amazon. And now I've released it in an audiobook because a lot of people are coming up to me and saying, I'm not really a big reader. I have a busy lifestyle. Can you do an audiobook? So I was like, okay.
They want to listen to it in their car, Melissa. We all want to listen to it in our cars on the way to work. Exactly.
Well, I didn't even know that, audiobooks were now this big thing. So apparently, it's a huge, huge market. Like, it's overtaking just regular books. I guess, it's a big shift in the way people look at reading. People just want to, play it and on the go and just get all the information. And I think it's an efficient way of getting information.
Well, I think it's also because you get to hear the person's voice and they read it in their own voice, unless you're hiring, I don't know, Joe Biden to read it. But if it's your own book, then people, I think, would like to hear it in the author's actual voice. Now, I'm wondering, have you released any videos about Zimbabwe and about the redistribution of wealth? I think that'd be very interesting and go over very well if you just did a 10-minute video explaining all that. That's not something people talk about a lot here. People are more familiar with South Africa, I think, and maybe a little bit about China. And obviously, it's what people tout as being a good idea here in North America. And it obviously isn't, as there are historical examples.
It's actually happening through the ESG. I don't know if you've heard of the ESG bank. It's a sort of like a credit score, but I actually call it a social credit score. And a lot of these big banks have instituted it into their way of whether you can get a loan or not. And I'm not really sure exactly what the letters stand for, but I know the S stands for social. So basically social justice. So if you're a business that doesn't have the proper social justice ideology, you may not even qualify for a loan. So to me, that's already something that is already introducing that idea. And I actually saw it play out because I had some friends that were actually trying to apply for a marijuana license in the state of Missouri. And they were trying to get me to sign on to it, even though I'm not really into that stuff. But they were saying that, hey, if we have a minority and a Black woman on our application, that's going to give us a better chance of getting this. So I'm like, that's how it starts. That's the redistribution of wealth. It's like, the affirmative action and not having an equal footing. So, it's already starting to happen. And this is something that played out majorly in Zimbabwe, where, they put in a law saying that if you have a business and you're a white person, you have to have a Black person has to own a large percentage of that company, even though they didn't build it or do anything or whatever. So we saw how that played out. I mean, a lot of those investments just flowed out of the country. A lot of foreign investment, a lot of jobs were lost. It completely destroyed the economy. So it's something that doesn't help anybody, because it never helped the indigenous Black people in Zimbabwe, who are now, for the most part, suffering, hungry, and so forth. So it's something that we need to push back against, because it's something that, cloaks itself in virtue and trying to help the downtrodden and so forth. But really what it does is it destroys everybody's life, whether you're Black, white, rich, poor, middle class. It just destroys everybody. And that's what we saw happen in Zimbabwe.
I know that we had set you up to debate somebody on my show, and the other person, I'm not going to name them, but they didn't want to debate a Black woman because they were also a Black woman. How did that was that weird for you? That was weird, a little bit weird for me.
Yeah, that is weird, but I think it's just I think with the left, they don't want somebody who looks like me, who speaks the way I do, because it completely shatters their narrative. And if you have somebody like me who is as Black as they come, from Africa, profile, here with nothing, and is able to make something of themselves, the whole idea that your skin color is an impediment and something that's going to stop you from succeeding is something they're not going to be able to win an argument with. So I think it's just a way to get out of, being able to debate somebody who can actually expose the fragility of your argument.
Are you still suspended from Twitter? I know there was a fake account in your name that was, some bigger profiles were sharing it too. So you're still suspended from there?
I am still suspended, and yeah, I think somebody is impersonating me on Twitter.
I'm going to have to check on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was deleted, but maybe it's still back up on there. But yeah, I was suspended after many. Sorry, what's that?
What did you get suspended for? Sorry, I cut you off.
It was targeting, because I shared a video that is still on Twitter and still being shared, and it's a video of Joe Rogan talking to Dr. Peter McCullough about the COVID situation. I don't even remember what the content of the video was, and it was shortly after I shared that video and tweeted it that I received notice that I was permanently suspended, because I've been suspended before, but it was usually for like a period of time. So, Twitter has been after me for a long time. Since I actually signed up for Twitter in 2015, I had 25,000 followers, and they completely shut down my account, couldn't log in, wasn't able to get it back, started creating a new account, started from zero, from scratch, up until, I had 500,000 followers when they suspended me permanently. So, it's just the operation, the way the left operates. If they can't argue against what you're saying, they'll just silence you. And we've seen this throughout history.
So what have you gone to now? Is it just Instagram? Did you jump over to Getter or Gab? Which one did you go to predominantly?
Yeah, I'm on Getter, and I'm also on Truth Social, President Truth Social. I know that one, not everybody can get on right away. I think they have a huge waiting list, but it's pretty good. I like that one. And I like Getter as well. So I'm on both those platforms at Real Melissa Tate.
Now, I want to do one more segment with you behind the paywall so that we don't get banned as well. So I want to encourage everyone to go to rebelnewsplus.com. You can sign up for just $8 a month. No ads like you saw at the top of the video, and no taking away of our segments. We know you all want to see all the extra segments. We're going to talk about Ukraine and Biden and the economy. So rebelnewsplus.com, and you can see the full show. And if you're listening on Spotify, you've got the whole show. So thank you for listening on Spotify. Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to rebelnewsplus.com and sign up now.